So good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's town hall. And if you're watching here on Zoom, if you have questions at any time, feel free to put those in the chat box or the Q&A. If you're catching us on the Facebook live stream, feel free to comment on the live stream post, and I'll be monitoring those for questions as well. Again, feel free to chat in at any time, and I'll kind of break in the conversation wherever it kind of fits. So thank you, Carla, for hosting these, and I'll hand it over to you to get us started.
Great, and thank you, Kelsey, for your technology wizardry. So thank you to everyone who's tuning in now or watching later on YouTube. Something that I have had strong feelings about for a long time is reducing gun violence. Although I was a young adult when Columbine happened, it was Sandy Hook that really pushed me to be an active participant in advocating for gun safety legislation. My son was in first grade at that time, the same age as 20 children who were murdered that day by a weapon designed for military use. Moms Demand Action was formed the day after, and that is when I really started to pay close attention to legislation and to the people who were voting on our laws and regulations. So tonight, our first panelist is Diane White, the co-lead for McLean County Moms Demand Action. Thanks for joining us, Diane, and please tell us about Moms Demand Action and what it is that you do.
Thank you very much, and good evening. My name is Diane White, and I'm co-lead of McLean County Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America with Karen Urban. And it is a pleasure for us to be here with you this evening. We are always very open and willing to share about our amazing organization, and we welcome this opportunity. Moms Demand Action is a grassroots, nonpartisan movement of Americans fighting for public safety measures that can protect people from gun violence and keep our families safe. We are a part of Everytown for Gun Safety with more than 6 million supporters, and we are the nation's largest gun violence prevention organization. We advocate for these evidence-based policies to keep our families and communities safe. Number one, keeping guns out of the wrong hands by having a better background check system. We need to close the loopholes that allow people to buy guns without a background check. Number two, protecting kids and communities by supporting red flag laws and responsible access to firearms. Lawmakers must limit easy access to firearms and accessories capable of inflicting mass casualties and encourage safe and responsible storage of all guns. Number three, addressing Americans' uniquely lethal domestic abuse problem, disarming domestic abusers. More than half of women murdered with guns in America are killed by an intimate partner or family member. And women are 5 times more likely to be killed in a domestic confrontation when a gun is present. Number four, combating daily gun violence, supporting research, law enforcement, and local solutions. We do this work because every day 100 Americans die from gun violence and hundreds more are wounded. Gun violence is the second leading cause of death for American children and teens overall, and the first leading cause of death for Black children and teens. It is time for the government to enact common sense gun laws. We can do that and still protect the Second Amendment. 92% of Americans agree with us. Shortly after Karen and I started Moms Demand Action, we had 10 fatalities in McLean County. We had to quickly activate survivor support and join with other outreach community organizations in Bloomington Normal. And we do have a strong relationship with many organizations who support survivors and common sense gun laws. Here are just a few that we have partnered with: Not in Our Town, Minority and Police Partnership, the YWCA, Illinois People's Action, Friends Forever, Bloomington Normal, Youth Activists, Voices of Reason, and Black Lives Matter. We have a faith outreach team, a fabulous survivor member lead who is our window into the Black community. And our community outreach team all keep us informed and engaged with survivors of gun violence in Bloomington Normal. Millions of Americans will join together at events all across the country starting tomorrow, making a public commitment to work together to encourage, support, and work towards solutions to save lives from gun violence. Friday, June 5th will be recognized as the 6th National Gun Violence Awareness Day, followed by Wear Orange Weekend, June 6th and 7th. Of course, this year we've had to move our campaign to a virtual experience. I'd like to take a moment and share with you the history of National Gun Violence Awareness Day. On January 21st, 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a high school student from the south side of Chicago, marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade. 1 week later, Hadia was shot and killed on a playground back in Chicago. Soon after this tragedy, Hadia's childhood friends decided to commemorate her life by wearing orange. They chose the color orange because hunters wore orange in the woods to protect themselves and others. In June 2015, a broad-based coalition asked people nationwide to join in what Hadia's friends started as a birthday celebration, launching the first National Gun Violence Awareness Day. More than 300 noteworthy influences and organizations and 30,000 Americans answered the call. In the years since, participation in Wear Orange has increased tenfold. If you would like to know more about the Wear Orange events planned for this weekend, you may inquire at WO2020 besmart@gmail.com. Thank you. Now I would like to invite Sarah Breeden, one of our legislative leads, to share with you our work in legislation. Sarah?
Carla, were you going to say anything first?
No, I was just going to say thank you, Diane. I don't think I knew the origin of Wear Orange, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Yes, I think it's just a beautiful story, and so much of our work is stories, and so I really appreciate the opportunity to share that. Thank you.
Right.
Hi, I'm Sarah Breeden, and as Diane mentioned, I'm one of the legislative co-leads in our local group. My main responsibilities are to keep track of state and federal legislation that has to do with gun safety, gun violence prevention, and things that might work against our goals as well, and to inform our local group about those types of legislation as they're happening at either the state level or the federal level. In the state level in particular, we have something called witness slips where we can alert our lawmakers to how we stand on different issues. And so I try to keep the group informed when a witness slip is available so that people can make sure that their legislators know how we feel about different pieces of legislation. At the federal level, I make sure that everybody knows the address and the phone number and how to get a hold of their legislators. Right now, we don't have anything specific happening because with so many things, things are at a standstill. But even before that, we were not making the progress that we need to with some of the federal legislation because even though several items have passed in the House, they've not been taken up in the Senate. So that's frustrating. We do reach out to the Senate and we do make ourselves heard, but you know, like here in Illinois, for example, the 2 senators that we have are very supportive of our goals, but if they can't get the Senate Majority Leader to bring those up for a vote, then, you know, we're kind of stuck. At the state level, we have been recently working on what's been called the bio bill or the Fix the FOID bill. And as Diane was talking about with loopholes, and I think Carla, you mentioned loopholes too, this is addressing some serious loopholes that we have in our state FOID system, which is basically your permission to be a gun owner, and the types of background checks that happen at the FOID card level are not as extensive as, for example, of what we have at the concealed carry level. And so we had a horrific workplace shooting in Aurora, Illinois last year. Had these loopholes been closed, that shooting would not have happened because the person who perpetrated that would not have been able to pass the background check at the basic level. He passed the background check at the basic level because it doesn't require fingerprints as it is now. Then when he went to apply for his concealed carry license, he had to do a background check with the fingerprints. Of course, they found the problems that should have prevented him from being able to get a FOID card, but it was too late because he'd already acquired weapons and he was already planning to orchestrate this shooting. Once it was determined that he should not have weapons and should not have a FOID card, it was revoked, but the state police did not actually take the weapons away. So there are several layers where this fell apart, and this bill addresses that. So even though we're still waiting for a vote on that in the Senate, because it did pass in the Illinois House, the session, they're not in session now. And my understanding is that after May 31st and through the veto session in mid-November, if it's called, we would have to have a 3/5 majority. That's just the way the mechanics work at that time, which would be 36 votes in the Senate to pass. And then after the veto session adjourns and through the lame duck session in January, it would be back to requiring a simple majority of 30 votes to pass the bill. My understanding is that we would have the 30 votes if it gets called. And it's hard to say what would determine whether they would call it or not. For example, they could have called it in the special session that they just had, but they were really focusing on what they determined to be COVID-related items. Of course, we made the case that this is a COVID-related item because, as already been discussed, there are increased issues related to COVID-19 and gun violence. But nevertheless, it was not brought up then. So we're still hopeful that it will be brought up, but that's just an example of something that we try to educate our volunteers about and to make sure that they are talking about it and that they're using their voice from the education that we provide to contact their legislators. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you for that. And I have to say that I really appreciate you when you put out the calls to action with the witness slips. It's one of the easiest ways to have your voice be heard in Springfield. And I know, Sarah, whenever you put out the witness slip things, you put out very clear instructions so that we know what to do. And for anybody listening, if you've never done a witness slip, the first time that you do one, you can create a login so that it will autofill all of your information other than the legislation and what your view is, whether you approve of the legislation, a proponent, or whether you oppose the legislation. So, you know, once you make that first witness slip, as long as you create a login, it makes it very, very easy to do again in the future. Great. Did you have anything else for us, Sarah?
I can't think of anything else right now, but we'll definitely keep people posted if anything changes on that.
Okay. And I'll just take a minute and ask Kelsey if there are any questions that have come up in the chat or on Facebook.
There are not any questions yet, but I did see that Karen stuck that email address in the chat here, so I'm going to comment on Facebook Live with that information as well.
Great. Okay, so I think our next panelist is Sherry, who's going to talk about the Be Smart and tell us what that's all about. Can we hear Sherry?
Sorry.
There we go. Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us. And am I correct that you actually just did a Be Smart presentation just prior to this, right?
You are correct, Carla. As part of our Wear Orange weekend, starting the weekend early here on Thursday, just did a virtual Be Smart, the first time besides practice Be Smarts that we did a Be Smart presentation virtually. So we had 25 people on that call. So we're more than happy to spread that message anytime. And thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk about Be Smart during your town hall. We appreciate it. Be Smart is a free research-based non-political educational program developed by Everytown for Gun Safety. Its purpose is to reduce unintentional shootings by children and suicides by gun. We reject the notion that unintentional shootings by children are accidents. They are completely preventable if responsible gun owners secure their guns. By securing their guns, we mean storing guns locked, unloaded, with ammunition stored separately. If you aren't a gun owner, the Be Smart program encourages you to ask about the presence of unsecured guns in any home your child may visit. Be Smart is 5 simple steps: secure all guns, model responsible behavior, ask about the presence of unsecured guns, recognize the role of guns in suicide, and tell others to be smart. So again, our team gives Be Smart presentations, free, research-based, non-political information to adults, even virtually now. So please contact us using the information that I believe Kelsey is going to share on the screen if anyone is interested in scheduling a Be Smart presentation, or if you want to know just more about our work. And certainly if you'd like to learn more yourself, please visit besmartforkids.org. There are a lot of resources for you. So thank you, Carla.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So, so once we can have in-person events again, as I understand it, you bring this training to wherever people might want it. What are some examples of places where you've given a Be Smart presentation prior to our global pandemic?
Yes, prior to that. Public libraries, Rotary clubs, we've had a mom's group, there's a social service coalition. I'm trying to think of the different places that we've been able to present. I'll be honest with you, Carla, you know, guns are polarizing as far as, you know, you start to talk about guns and people don't want to necessarily talk to you anymore about it, or you know, certain places are limited, they don't want to be political and things like that. But you know, Be Smart is truly it's not political. We although I'm very proud to be a part of Moms Demand Action, we do try very hard, all of the Be Smart educators try very hard to keep moms over here while we're doing Be Smart and concentrate just on a safety message. We do try and partner with law enforcement whenever we can, and we did do that in the virtual presentation earlier. And we do that for a couple reasons. One, because we know law enforcement's voice has a little bit more credibility when it comes to gun issues in an area like this, where you know, gun ownership, I think, is pretty high. And then the other thing is it's been through our law enforcement partners that we've been able to distribute over 100 gun locks in 2019. So when we're in person, when we do things like National Night Out or the Culture Fest at Miller Park or all of those tabling events, we're able to give people cable locks when they ask right away. So we can do that through partnership with law enforcement.
Okay. So a cable lock, I guess a cable lock goes through the trigger part of a firearm so that you can't pull the trigger?
Correct. It is a very basic safety measure for guns. There are lots more sophisticated methods, but it's just a very basic safety device for a gun.
And it sounds simple, so that for people, especially people who maybe live in rural areas, far away from any law enforcement. I know that certainly people might want to have a firearm in their home for protecting their home because they live in such a remote place and far away from law enforcement. But it sounds to me like a lock like that would be actually very quick for the adult firearm owner to remove. Is
Sure.
that your understanding of this device?
Actually, with the law enforcement officers that I've worked with, they recommend a little bit more sophisticated of a gun lock when you're talking about quick access. There are biometric safes, there's wall safes. Actually, this is one of the things that the law enforcement officer typically addresses in the presentation, is that we respect people's Second Amendment rights, and we understand that they may want to have firearms in their homes, and it's their right to do so. And quick access always comes up, and the law enforcement officer is able to let them know, and is far more knowledgeable than I am, that there are gun safes that you can literally get to your weapon in seconds, including getting to your magazine and load it. And it's all about having a plan and being proficient. And so yes, you're absolutely right. I don't know that the cable lock is the method that our LEOs would recommend for quick access, but I know that there are other methods.
Right. Well, that's interesting to hear about, the different kinds of locks and devices that are available, because of course, we don't want our children to get a hold of firearms, and we definitely don't want our teens to get a hold of firearms. I have a teenager. They're very moody. They're very, their emotions are up and down, and we want to make sure that firearms are only used by the approved owner.
And it's interesting. So, there are even cable gun locks distributed by ChildSafe through law enforcement agencies, but there are also veterans organizations that distribute those cable locks for free as well. They distribute information like having a picture of your loved ones by the gun with the cable lock is a helpful thing to do. So there's a lot of organizations that are willing to distribute the gun locks.
That's good. Well, thank you so much. Before we move on, Kelsey, have any questions come up about Be Smart?
Thanks, Carla. We did just have one question. Sherry, I think you said that the intended audience for these Be Smart events were adults. Is that true?
That is correct. We give our presentation to adults, and to be totally honest, it's because we believe it is always an adult's responsibility to make sure that firearms are secured and not the curious kids' responsibility to learn not to touch them or things like that. So it's information that we distribute to adults.
You're great. Okay, so that was the only question right now?
Yes.
Okay, so our last panelist this evening is Karen Irvin. Karen is the co-lead of our local chapter, and thank you for joining us, Karen. And so I'd like for you to tell everybody how to get involved, and also if you're aware, if there are any members or organizers in Tazewell County at this time, because what the position that I'm running for covers a portion of Tazewell County.
Well, thank you, Carla. We really appreciate being able to participate tonight. And I did anticipate that question, so I had a chance to do some research about Tazewell County.
Mhm.
And at this point, there is not a Tazewell County Moms Demand Action Group. There
Okay.
is a group, a local group in Peoria, and then there's McLean County. I did not have a chance to go into a database and see if there were any, because I'm kind of unfamiliar with all of the towns in Tazewell
Mhm.
County. But at this point, we do have people that get interested in Moms Demand Action, and we can lead them to organizing. Well, we don't actually do it, but the Illinois State Chapter leads
Okay.
can help people get organized so that Tazewell County might be able to form one. But until they would become familiar enough with it, we would totally invite them to get involved with McLean County. And there's a great group in Peoria too, depending on which one's closer.
Okay.
So tonight I just wanted to talk about some of the ways that people can get involved to support Moms Demand Action. We do hold monthly meetings via Zoom during this time of shelter in place. And we have found that a Zoom meeting is very appealing to certain people that just haven't had the time to come to an in-person meeting. But when we do have in-person meetings, our home for meetings is at St. John's Lutheran Church in Bloomington. And we always live stream our meetings on Facebook, so that if you're not able to attend and we don't have to do a Zoom meeting, you can participate by seeing our meetings Facebook Live. We believe that we plan meetings that are educational and inspiring. We bring in speakers who do the inspirational part of it. I think we've heard some really wonderful community partners and survivors that help us understand the importance of this work. And we always have a meeting that leads to an action that you can take right that very night. We know that people's time is very precious and that people want to participate in the action part of Moms Demand Action. We're even known sometimes to send homework home with them if they're so inclined. We're serious when we say that we have a job for you, whether you have 10 minutes or an hour a week to devote to us, or an hour a month to devote to the work we do. If you're interested, we will find a way to give you a task. Moms Demand Action has a leadership team with more than 20 people, and we welcome diversity in all forms. Men, women, young folks, seniors, people of color, LGBTQ, gun owners, non-gun owners, people with kids, people without kids. We embrace all of the people that would like to fight alongside with us to decrease and end gun violence. Our teams are varied and accommodate a broad interest of the broad interests of all the people that wind up joining our organization. And I'd like to share just a list to give you an idea. Let's see if I can do that. Now, can you see that, or do I need to share it again?
Nope.
You can't see it. Okay, so let me, again, new computer, sorry. I think I know what to do. I just moved this over. center this. That's big.
There you go.
Yeah, I just have to pull this over. I'm thinking you
Where-
can't see it. You can't see it very well. I'm not sure.
So
Well, we've all learned some new skills this.
Yeah, I know. And
month.
it would be easy if this was a computer I was familiar with, but I'm
Karen,
just trying to drag it over so you can see it.
Kelsey might be able to give you some tips.
Yeah. if you click the little square up in the top right corner, it might make it full screen so we can see all of it perhaps.
How did I do?
There you go.
Yeah, okay. So thank you, Kelsey. As you can see, I'm just going to go down this list, but events is a really important team that we have because we want to be visible and relevant in the community, and to do that, we plan events. Our community outreach is something that Diane referenced in her talk about our work very early on. We wanted to acknowledge that there are people in the community that have been doing the work of preventing gun violence or ending gun violence or supporting survivors long before the local group of moms arrived. So we want to partner and collaborate with the community. And if you like to do that, community outreach might be for you. The faith outreach is one where, again, we need to build bridges with different faith communities. And we have a lead that is working on that, and she'd love to have help. Legislative, Sarah and a couple of co-leads that she has know that we're going to be hitting a really busy time with elections coming up, and work that we'll be doing to support gun sense candidates, gun sense distinction candidates, to get them elected. A lot of us have bumper stickers that say change gun laws or change Congress, and we intend to do that. We need workers. Membership is really very, very important as we engage members and re-engage them once they come to a meeting. And we have a great membership team. If you're somebody that likes to meet new people and kind of follow up with them, that'd be a good one. Our Survivor membership team is really at this point just one person who has a large, important responsibility to figure out ways to identify survivors who feel ready to join us, or at least give them the tools that they need to think about when it's time in their journey to work with us if they get to that point. She has a big job. Be smart. You heard about that. Data. If you're somebody that likes to hole up and work with a database, we always need people to do that. And we only have one social media person, and she could use some help. Hustle is, I wish I could really explain what our Hustle person does. I know what Hustle is. We use Hustle all the time to communicate via text messages that let us know if you're planning to attend an event. But Erin, who's doing the hustles for us, it's like magic to me, but I know that it would be a fun team to be on if you're somebody that's, Erin has young children at home, a young child, and so she loves Hustle because she can do that in the convenience of, the few minutes where she's got time to herself, or after everybody goes to bed, she can accomplish that. And that's something interesting. And then volunteer coordination is our newest lead and our newest position. And it's an extension of the community partnering. It's really a chance for us to find out who in the community could use our support, rather than just what we do in the community outreach. We're kind of letting all these community groups know who we are and what we do, and would they please attend our events and support what we're doing. Volunteer coordination is a little bit of a flip side of that, where we're saying, in order to, again, to be relevant and to do the work we need to do, we want people to know that we're there for them too. So for instance, we call those external events. If the Forgotten Initiative that works with foster families is having a big event and they just need 10 people to help them, we want them to know that we'll show up without our mom shirts, just with our good intentions to support what they're doing. And that's a new and important part of what Moms is trying to do in communities in terms of hitting all kinds of layers of what gun violence prevention looks like and what city gun violence prevention looks like.
Right.
So those are our teams. And now, if I can get out, I think I know just I know just what to do here. Okay.
There, that was quick.
Right. And each team is structured with at least one, but most times two co-leads. So we don't want anybody to think that they would volunteer to join us in our work and we're going to make them a lead. We don't need to do that anymore. We used to do that in the past, but now we've got all of our leads, and we'd like people that say, yeah, I've got a couple hours a month, I could be on a team, to join us. I will say before we end that our next meeting is scheduled as a Zoom meeting, and that is on Monday, July 13th at 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. So I'm going to put Diane's and my email addresses in the chat. And the best way to find out some more about our group with specific questions, if you might have them about work you'd like to participate in, is probably to contact Diane and I, who are the group co-leads. But I will do a shout out for our McLean County Moms Demand Action Facebook page. Because there's a lot of work that goes into sharing events, sharing articles, educational opportunities on that. And our social media lead, if you search for our private Facebook page, she will just ask you a few questions to kind of vet you so that we know that you're somebody that honestly wants to support our mission. And then on our Facebook page, you'll learn a lot of things, and you'll get to know a lot of people, and you'll be surprised at how many people you probably intersect with on other groups that are working towards social justice issues or things like that. Diane, Sarah, Sherry, did we forget anything before we leave here?
I think you covered it very well.
I think we all kind of hit the notes we wanted to hit. I'm going to add a couple of emails in the chat, hopefully.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you all so much for coming on and talking about this at this time. Yeah, as you launch your Wear Orange weekend events. Now, I know that because we can't, thank you, Sarah. I know that because we can't really gather safely and easily in large groups, that it's all virtual. However, I recall seeing some calls to pick up decoration items. So I think around town, people will be decorating the fronts of their houses or their porches with orange, right?
Yes, and that's I think Diane might have alluded to that, or Sarah did. We had a community donation drive in the middle of May to support Neville House and the YWCA and the Baby Fold. I think those were the big three. But as people were dropping off their donations, they were also picking up placards that say Wear Orange, End Gun Violence, and Moms Demand Action. And truthfully, we have some of those left. And Decorate Orange is our way to flood our social media with photographs of people who have joined us by putting a placard or just putting orange balloons or wearing orange and taking a photo of them. And anybody that would want to do that can learn more about that at the the Wear Orange WO 2020 Be Smart at gmail.com. That address also works with a question saying, hey, how can I get some posters? And what do I do? Because what we're doing, Carla, is we are encouraging people to put their posters up, dress up in orange, get somebody to take a picture of their front door or their deck or their driveway, and then send that to our social media lead. So if you contact us because you want to participate, we'll let you know where to send your photo, and you may win a prize.
Great.
Yes.
So if I were one of those people who failed to pick up some Decorate Orange. Yeah, I failed to pick up some Decorate Orange things when that call was put out. I had a lot of other things going on in my life, and I just forgot. So if I email you, you could tell me where I could get a poster.
Absolutely, and you may even find that they get delivered to you.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
All right.
Let me put that in.
Great. So, Kelsey, have any more questions come up in the chat or on Facebook before we wrap up?
Thanks, Carla. We did have one question come in. Obviously, your next meeting is scheduled on Zoom, but people were wondering, are your monthly meetings kid-friendly when you are back in person?
Well, I have to be very honest, and at this point, we have had a couple of people bring like little lap babies, you know, but we don't have, if you bring a rambunctious 6-year-old that wants to run around, and we've had teenagers, and we often, you know, that kind of have an interest in doing their homework while their parents are at the meeting, but we don't have childcare. So if it's something, if it's a baby that can be with you, if it's, you know, a kid that is in, we've had high schoolers, as I said, or middle school kids come, do their homework, bring their snacks or whatever, then we welcome them. There have been 1 or 2 meetings where in the invitation, we have said it's probably not appropriate because of the topic. When we get kind of into sensitive survivor stories. They may not be appropriate.
Right.
That's why we do live stream them for you know, parents that can't get childcare, and since we're not providing it, we want them to be able to attend.
Right. Any more questions?
That is all of the questions at this time.
Okay. Well, then once again, I will say thank you to all these great women who are doing such important work in our community, working with survivors, educating us about safe storage and safe handling of people who choose to keep firearms in their home for whatever personal reasons they might have to do so. And I was really pleased to hear about your volunteer opportunity, in that rather than trying to get more people to do work for you, that your group is willing to do work for others. And that's an awesome thing, especially now when there's a lot of people that need support more than ever. And I just want to remind everybody to, as we go into election season, to really look at the people you're voting for, be aware of what they stand for, and pay attention, and get your mail-in ballot. You should get one. You should get a ballot mailed, a mail-in ballot application mailed to you automatically if you have voted recently. And if you happen to be listening now or watching later and you have not voted recently, you will have to ask for a mail-in ballot. And also, if you've moved, and your address has changed, then you might have to ask for a mail-in ballot. But that will be the safest way. And when you fill out your ballot at home, you can look up everybody on that ballot and find out what they stand for and if it aligns with your values and what you want for your future, for yourself and your children and your community.
Right.
So
Thank you.
thank you all, and I'll say good night.
Good night, Carla.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Carla.
Carla.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.